Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Today we have new amazing stories, so subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. What was the nastiest thing your boss ever did to you? Manager of shifts at a fast food restaurant. 6 or 7 workers, including the shift manager, make up a normal shift. In addition to the shift manager and store manager, there were 2 of us. On a Friday night, the busiest night of the week, there are just 4 workers trying to get everything done that needs to be done. Here I am, working my tail off to get things done. It's no surprise that we're running behind schedule, orders are taking too long to fulfill, customers are piling up, and tempers are flaring. We were at the end of our ropes. Despite the store manager's best efforts to acquire more help, nobody showed up despite the fact that everyone in the building was working overtime. My shift supervisor had decided that now was a good moment to start giving me a hard time about my work. Just tiny petty comments like, "You're not moving fast enough, you're not following correct procedure, you're not doing this or that," and so on. Keep in mind that I am currently performing the duties of at least 2 other workers in addition to my regular responsibilities at the cash, grill, and fry station. I'm getting everything done, but I can't possibly keep up with the volume of requests coming in, and between the irate clients on one end and the equally irate shift manager on the other, I'm starting to lose my cool. About now is when I realize I'm only getting paid the bare minimum. I am not getting paid enough to put up with this crap. Without raising my voice, I turn to the store manager and politely request that he inform the shift manager to be quiet or I will leave. I don't need her yelling at me because I'm working as quickly and efficiently as possible. The shift manager loses it and begins yelling at me. What was said, if anything, I did not hear. I really couldn't care less at this time. The store manager receives my apron, which I remove. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I just can't take it. Put me out of my misery by firing me, but I'm leaving. As a result, I'm leaving work early. I felt awful for abandoning the other workers in the midst of that chaos, but I had reached my wit's end. If I had stayed, I probably would have lost my cool and swung at the shift manager. I have no idea how the remainder of the night progressed or if the matter was resolved. There were still 3 or 4 hours left before closing, plus the usual closing tasks that take a crew of 4 about an hour to complete. The next day, I was surprised to find that I hadn't received a call informing me of my termination. The next shift I worked, I did get called into the store manager's office and had it explained that what I did, while understandable, had not been appropriate. Shortly after, the shift manager was fired. I and another man were recruited by my boss, who I had known from a previous job site and had worked for years to complete some minor construction work and upkeep on a couple apartment buildings. I ended up doing everything during this time, from sketching out quick blueprints to estimating materials and building it with my coworker, while the D used the time to go on biking trips, attend boot camps, play with his children, or do whatever else he wanted with his girlfriend. The D was married. We once spent an entire full day building benches for his boot camp friends. As long as I was left alone to complete my work, I couldn't care less what he was doing. I should point out that we were part of a much bigger business and that my boss was merely one of several supervisors, not the business's owner. Naturally, he got away with that for a while because the business had far greater assignments to handle, but eventually he started to act sloppily. Missing meetings with architects and designers that he would schedule, boasting to coworkers about some of his exploits, and of course picking verbal fights with people on other sites that he believed were beneath him. This will come back to bite him later, are just a few of the things he did. People began to look for him, but of course they couldn't find him anywhere. To cut a much longer tale short, his attitude and antics caught up with him, and knowledge of what he was doing spread throughout the entire business, including the owner. According to individuals who were present, he was dragged into a meeting where he was yelled at for a good hour. Then he, my employer, drags my partner and I into a meeting, tells us that he is being held accountable for our subpar work and that things will be handled differently going forward. I'm good at interpreting subtext, so I understood that to mean one of you guys squealed on me and I'm gonna find out who and deal with you. I'm aware that my career might be in jeopardy and he's seeking someone to blame for everything in order to preserve his own skin. I thus make a choice. He is heavily relying on his BS to keep everyone in the dark about what's really going on, so I go talk to one of the secretaries I got along with, had a good rapport with another supervisor, and who also frequently argued with my boss, and I tell her everything that's been happening, including his attempts to have her fired. Another story. If I start reporting to her as well, telling her what happens throughout the day, I ask her if she will alert the other supervisors if things start to go wrong for me. This way, I'll have individuals present at the supervisor's meeting who can refute what he says. I realize going around his back like that looked strange, but at this point, I knew he was going to try to blame me for everything that was going wrong. Over the following weeks, I don't have to say much because my employer makes an effort to disparage me as openly as he can, even by setting up a few traps. I needed to protect myself in any way I could. He once requested that I begin repair work on the lobby ceiling. When I go to the maintenance crew to ask about setting up barriers and scheduling time, he snaps at me, telling me that it is his responsibility to coordinate these things with other teams and that I have no business doing it. He spent 6 hours a day on the computer, but the limit of his work was taking pictures of what we were doing and emailing them, creating folders, and whatever else. The time has finally come. He pulls me aside and says he's tired of my work ethic and attitude. At this time, the owner is said to know everything. Apparently, he was doing things that I wasn't even aware of, and to have no more power. They just haven't had the chat with him yet, according to information I received from the secretary a week earlier. So, I informed my supervisor that I had completed all tasks assigned to me, and that if he wasn't pleased with the way I worked, it was likely because he had forgotten what actual labor entailed. He left in a huff, probably to inform the owner that he was letting me go, and he returned groggy. He just strolled to a corner and started working without saying a word or even glancing my way. Owner appears and instructs me to report the next day to a different job site after transferring me there. According to what I learned afterwards, he had lost his position as a supervisor and was now just another employee receiving subpar assignments to keep him away from the other workers. He left a few months later. The following day, when I got to the other job site, everyone else there, including the foreman and supervisor, had congregated, and we had spent an hour discussing about him. Evidently, everyone was aware of what he was doing because lunchtime conversations frequently turned to his exploits and my struggles. What was the most outrageous thing a neighbor/HOA did to you or your property? Our neighbors were always so very kind. We had a sizable garden that was enclosed in, and they had something resembling a little garden home. We had specifically requested that our fence be constructed around 2 feet within of our property line. It was a see-through fence with a wire center and a wood frame so that we could see out and others could see our flowers while keeping deer away. Then, a few years later, our neighbors made the decision to build an additional enclosed garden space. They did so on the property line, and they trellised all of their new plants onto our fence. They became quite irate and refused when we asked them to at least take down their fence's attachments, even if they didn't move their enclosure from the property line. My husband snapped and removed their belongings from our fence. We did not speak with them again. She was a bee. She was formerly the president of the HOA, but was removed from her position. When she first moved in, we thought she was cool. We introduced ourselves. She was very nice. First thing she did that got my parents really mad was complained about the pool in the backyard. It apparently attracted bugs because we didn't clean it. We did clean it very often. Town inspector came out and came to look and basically said the pool looked fine. The thing is, the inspector only came out because my neighbor said she talked to us multiple times about it. She didn't. We informed the town that, and they said, "Oh, that's not cool." We talked to our neighbor about it when we find out, asked her what was going on. She said that she was getting mosquito bites when she was having a barbecue in her backyard. Keep in mind, this is northeast Pennsylvania in the middle of summer. There are all sorts of bugs outside. We explain this to her, and she's like,
"Well, it seems like there's more than usual."
And we just ask her to please knock on our front door if she has a problem, and she says, "Whatever." So then she complains about our carport, which is fenced off / covered by shrubbery. No way you could get in or look unless you were in it or look through the shrubs. She saw a couple of old car batteries that were in ventilated buckets, an old car jack, and a bunch of shelves and drawers my dad kept tools in. They were waterlogged, but still usable. We just didn't want them inside because of it. She once again does not talk to us. She calls the town multiple times and says there's hazardous waste in the carport. Guy comes out, sees the battery, says we probably shouldn't have them, and gives my dad a $50 fine because of them, and says that we need to get rid of the shelves / drawers because they were waterlogged, and she said that neighbors saw bugs on it, termites, even though there was no evidence of termites at all. Once again, we talk to neighbor, and she says that she tried to get in contact with us, but we were never home, which was BS because my mom didn't work. The final straw was the shrubs out front that blocked off the carport and her yard. She wanted them gone, except she said we should pay. This time she actually came to us. She straight up said this.
"Look, those shrubs have got to go. I need to set up a privacy fence, and the shrubs are part on your property."
So my dad said, "You can get rid of them, but we're not paying for it." Neighbor threw a hissy fit on our driveway and said,
"No, you are going to pay for half of it. They are half on my property and half on yours."
My dad just laughed and told her to go F herself. She walked inside and called the town again and said something like,
"The shrubs they planted are encroaching on my property. They need to pay to take it down."
So, lady from the town takes a copy of our lots and surveys the property line. She paid for surveyor too. It probably would have been cheaper for her to buy an electric chainsaw and just cut down the shrubs. Lady from the town at this point has had it with my neighbor and says, "Look, these shrubs were not planted here by them. They've been here at least a decade before you moved in and before they moved in." Not sure how they knew that. And the lady from the town comes by my house as well and says what she said to my neighbor. So neighbor hires a few guys to come in and cut down the shrubs. We still had no problem with it. We wanted her to stop looking into our ass anyway, so whatever. And now comes for the payback, the part of the story everyone has been waiting for. So she gets the fence put up, and we notice that the fence is actually touching our carport. That's not right. Now, keep in mind, we both got copies of our surveyed land put in our mailbox a few weeks before she got the fence because of the shrub debacle. So my dad takes a look at the paper, and he's not sure how much the fence is encroached on our property, but it's a few inches for sure. So we went over to neighbor's house, showed her a copy of the survey, which she rudely said,
I have my own. I don't need to see yours."
We said it was on our property, she said it wasn't, and said that we would need to get a surveyor out to prove it. She also said,
"I don't understand how anyone could be your neighbors. You need to move far the F away from people."
Because apparently we mistreated her somehow. So we call the town. Surveyor comes out, we pay for it, and says it is in fact on our property a few inches. Neighbor gets a letter in her mailbox saying she is encroaching on our property and to remove the fence. Neighbor comes over, super apologetic. "I'm really not sorry. That's not cool of me." My dad just says, "Whatever, just move the fence back on your property." And she's like,
"Well, I can't really afford to do it myself since you had me pay to remove the shrubs. Could you possibly help?"
My dad looks at her straight in the face and says, "If you do not move your fence, I'm gonna knock it the F down." Neighbor says,
"Wow, you don't have to be so rude about it."
And a few months go by and the fence is still there. So my dad goes down to the local clerk's office. We inform them that the fence is encroached on our property. We show them pictures and the letter original sent out. Clerk sends out a 30-day warning that if the fence is not moved, it's going to be knocked down. 30 days go by and my dad waits for the neighbor to go to work and has me and him pull it out of the ground piece by piece and throw it on her property. She calls the cops, says she never received a letter. We show the cop the document we got from the clerk. Cop drives away. For some reason, she stopped bothering us after that. Guys, thank you for all the support and likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.